Good day and welcome to this session on aligning your agreements with the Protection of Personal Information Act, or POPIA. It is important to note that the presentation does not constitute legal advice. Please contact your legal team or external legal advisors before making amendments to agreements. During this session, we are going to look at the roles of third parties, which contracts are typically reviewed for POPIA, how to assess contracts, some standard clauses that one can consider including, and the importance of data sharing or data processing agreements. Firstly, in terms of the roles of third parties, it is necessary to determine who organizations are with whom we enter into agreements. In other words, as defined in POPIA, who is the responsible party, the data subject, or an operator in terms of an agreement. Now, the responsible party is a public or a private body or any other person which determines the purpose and means for processing personal information. In terms of POPIA, the definition of data subject is, it is the person to whom the personal information relates. So it's a natural person like you and me, or in terms of POPIA, it is also possible for a legal entity, such as a company or an organization, to be a data subject. So it's just important to be on the lookout for that as well. Then lastly, it is necessary to identify whether any of the parties with whom we interact are operators. Now, an operator is a person who processes personal information for a responsible party in terms of a contract or a mandate without coming under the direct authority of that party. In other words, if our organization is the responsible party and there is another organization with whom we enter into an agreement, and that other organization, in terms of a mandate or that contract that they have with us, process personal information on our behalf, that organization will be seen to be an operator in terms of POPIA's definitions. The contracts that we typically see, which needs to be reviewed for POPIA, is, for instance, wherever there is a customer agreement. So terms and conditions, general terms and conditions that we use when we contract with our customers. Also, for instance, in service provider agreements, when we have suppliers that contract to our organization. Then importantly, operators, if we have an external call center or a data processing, say an IT company that process personal information on behalf of our organization, it is important that the agreement with operators must be reviewed for POPIA purposes, and specifically when we have agreements, relationships with operators, it is a requirement of the Act that the written agreement must be in place. Then also, we typically see that organizations also review their employer-employee relationships, so with employment agreements to make sure that those agreements are aligned with POPIA's requirements. What we typically do to assess agreements in line with POPIA is firstly to look at the agreement's term. If an agreement is nearing the end of its term, so if the agreement is in any event going to be renegotiated within the foreseeable future, it may be worthwhile to rather just include an addendum to the existing agreement, or then depending on the term of the agreement, to consider to wait until the current agreement comes to an end, because at that stage the agreement's terms are in any event going to be renegotiated. A very interesting matter that we've seen in numerous agreements is that reference is made to policies. In other words, rather than amending a specific agreement, it is very handy if an agreement already refers to a certain policy that is incorporated into the agreement. So, for instance, when in supplier agreements, to refer to the organization's privacy policy, that the supplier is bound to the organization's privacy policy as in place from time to time, and then if it is necessary to make any adjustments to the privacy requirements, it is possible to just make those adjustments to the policy itself. We've also seen this being used with a lot of fruit in employer-employee relationships. So referring to, once again, to internal policies to which the employee is bound. Now, in terms of clauses in agreements, we typically see that clauses dealing with matters such as confidentiality and data protection or transfer of information across borders may need to be aligned with POPIA's requirements, or also that definitions where in the agreement a provision is made for definitions under the definition of confidential information to, for instance, include the definition of personal information to form part of the definition of confidential information. We've seen that a number of organizations utilize standard clauses. So the legal department will provide the other departments within an organization with standard clauses relating to privacy, and it is then the prerogative of business to ensure that those standard clauses are included in the agreement. We typically see that in terms of amendments relating to the terms and conditions or agreements with service providers and operators once again. At IOCO, we also make a generic set of standard clauses available for sale to our clients. That set of generic standard clauses can be accessed on the website compliancehub.ioco.tech. It is just again important to note that those generic clauses also do not constitute legal advice, and it is necessary for the organization's legal advisors to incorporate the necessary clauses into agreements in order to ensure POPIA compliance. Then, looking at the importance of a data sharing or data processing agreement, Section 21 of POPIA refers to security measures regarding information processed by an operator, and this section also refers back to Section 19 of the Act, and Section 19 deals specifically with security measures on the integrity of personal information. So for purposes of this discussion, it is just important to note that the Act contains specific requirements which should be included in any agreements dealing with a responsible party operator relationship. That is just a few pointers to be taken into account when reviewing your agreements for POPIA compliance. You're very welcome to also contact us at the email address provided at the bottom of the screen. Thank you very much for your time, and goodbye.